Have you ever noticed that the harder you push for something, maybe it's a new career level or, a deeply fulfilling relationship or even just a profound shift in your physical health, the more the universe seems to just aggressively push back?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you hit this invisible wall.
Right. You find yourself in this universally understood scenario where you are striving for a monumental transformation. You're trying to
Hmm.
call forth a vast constellation of resources, or what we'd normally call absolute financial freedom, or an unparalleled elevation in your life's work.
And you're putting in all the visible effort.
Exactly. You monitor your daily habits, you attempt to radiate positivity, you do the grueling physical labor, and you wait eagerly for the world to reward your dedication. And then, instead of a breakthrough, you hit a brick wall. The gears just seem to jam entirely.
It's an incredibly common and honestly utterly exhausting experience.
Yeah.
The physical world suddenly refuses to behave like predictable clockwork. It just offers intense resistance.
Yeah, and it leaves you with this sheer maddening frustration. You feel the intensity of your desire, right? You're doing all the tangible work, yet the reality standing right in front of you remains this seemingly unmovable mountain.
Which naturally leads to a lot of doubt.
Oh, for sure. You start asking yourself, like, why does the physical world resist so fiercely? You genuinely believe you are doing everything correctly, yet you constantly feel thrown off balance by unexpected obstacles. You react with exhaustion, and you find yourself trapped in this perpetual waiting room.
Waiting for the external circumstances to shift?
Yes. Waiting so you can finally feel secure enough to rest. Waiting for the outside to change so the inside can relax.
Which, if we really look at it, is the ultimate human paradox. We are constantly pushing against the physical world, expecting it to eventually yield to our physical force.
Because that's what we're taught, right? Push harder.
Right. But the profound challenge we face isn't a matter of insufficient effort. It isn't about pushing harder or working longer or, forcing the mountain to move. That frustration stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of the very architecture of reality itself.
A misunderstanding. How so?
Well, as a species, we operate under this deeply ingrained illusion that matter is the origin point of our experience. We think the physical stuff is the starting line. But the universe operates on one absolute, unyielding truth: energy precedes matter.
Energy precedes matter.
Always, without exception. Before anything takes a physical shape in this dense dimensional space, it must first exist as an energetic blueprint.
Okay, wait, I want to pause right here and really unpack this because we need to be incredibly careful with our terminology. When people hear words like energy or blueprint, it immediately sounds like abstract poetry.
It sounds a bit woo-woo.
Exactly. It sounds like a pleasant phrase you'd read on a decorative pillow or something from a weekend wellness retreat, rather than a mechanical, literal truth about how existence actually functions.
That reaction is completely understandable. I mean, it really highlights where the most critical error in our modern understanding occurs. What we casually, almost dismissively term our vibe or our energy is actually a highly precise, universal mechanism.
So it's not just a mood.
No, it is your frequency. And this frequency is not some mystical, floating aura outside of your control, nor is it a metaphor. It is the literal, real-time state of your consciousness.
The state of your consciousness.
Yes, it is your self-concept. It's the exact condition of your mental attitude, your physiological state, and your imagination at any given moment. It's the lens through which your brain is filtering the world.
So, to set our intention for this exploration today, we are going to completely demystify the absolute mechanics of how reality is materialized. We're unpacking insights from some profound frameworks today to really dissect the true anatomy of human consciousness.
Moving past the platitudes.
Right, getting into the actual gears of the mind. And most importantly, we are going to understand how to hold your internal ground when the external world attempts to distort your vision. Because the premise here is stark, isn't it? If you cannot maintain the integrity of your internal frequency, you will fundamentally struggle to maintain any desired external reality.
That is the exact foundation we have to build upon. To truly grasp this, we have to look at what we mean when we assert that reality is materialized energy.
Right.
Every single desired reality you could possibly conceive of, from a life of immense, overwhelming abundance to a reality of total, unshakable relational peace, possesses a unique, universal blueprint.
So think of it as a highly specific energetic signature, or like a precise broadcast channel.
Like a cosmic
A
barcode.
unique identifier, yeah.
Exactly that. It's entirely unique.
Yeah.
No two realities share the same energetic signature. Now, the mechanics of materialization dictate that in order to experience a specific reality, your internal state must become the exact energetic equivalent of that specific blueprint.
You have to match the signature.
You have to match it. And this is the part that really breaks people. This internal matching must happen long before the physical world catches up to reflect it.
Oh, wow. So you're saying you have to tune the dial to the classical music station while the room is still completely silent.
Yes, and you have to leave the dial there until the music finally begins to play.
I mean, I understand the analogy, but frequency or internal state still feels like a massive umbrella term. If I'm supposed to match this universal blueprint, what exactly am I tuning?
That's the real question.
Right, like what are the actual tangible dials on the control panel of human consciousness? Because it can't just be thinking happy thoughts. We all know that forcing a smile doesn't magically change a bank account.
It absolutely does not. And the assumption that it does leads to massive disappointment. This is where the true granular work begins. Frequency is composed of highly specific, intimately intertwined elements.
It's an ecosystem.
Yes, it's not just one switch you flip. It's a complex, living ecosystem of awareness. We can break this down into an intricate anatomy. There are distinct components that dictate the signal you are broadcasting. Let us dissect these components with intense clarity, starting with the absolute bedrock, your beliefs.
Beliefs. And we aren't just talking about things you passively assume might be true, like believing it might rain tomorrow. We're talking about the foundational rules of engagement you hold about existence itself.
Yes, beliefs are the foundational truths you hold. They are the invisible architecture of your mind, and they usually form from two distinct sources.
Okay, what's the first?
First, an overwhelming majority of them are adopted from your surroundings during the dawn of the cycle.
Like those highly formative early stages of life.
Precisely. You absorb the fears, the limitations, and the assumptions of your caregivers, your culture, and your immediate environment, long before you have the conscious awareness to guard the gates of your own mind.
So you internalize these external opinions, and your brain just categorizes them as absolute, undeniable truths about how the world works.
Right. And second, beliefs are forged through your own repeated lived experiences.
Oh, I see. The brain recognizes a pattern and creates a shortcut, like, fire burned me once, therefore fire is always dangerous.
Exactly. The brain is an efficiency machine. It creates these deep neural pathways over the passage of eras, carving them like rivers into a landscape.
But, and I think this is the critical pivot for our discussion, if you want a reality of absolute freedom, but your foundational belief is that resources are fundamentally scarce.
Which is a belief adopted from an early era of intense struggle, usually.
Right. If you believe that people are inherently untrustworthy and that survival must be fought for bitterly, your frequency is instantly and deeply incompatible with the reality you desire.
It's like you're attempting to run modern software on obsolete, damaged hardware.
That makes perfect sense. You cannot broadcast a signal of abundance if the transmitter itself is constructed out of parts specifically designed for scarcity. The signal will always be distorted.
Always.
So if beliefs are the foundational hardware, what is the next component driving the system?
The next component is emotionally charged thoughts. Notice the specific phrasing there.
Not just fleeting, passing thought.
Exactly. The human mind generates a vast constellation of thoughts every single waking moment, the overwhelming majority of which are just background static.
Just the brain chattering to itself.
Right. But thoughts that are amplified by the sheer magnitude of emotion. Those act as the driving engine of creation. Emotion is the propellant, is the physiological fuel.
Wow.
When you hold a thought about your desired reality and you flood your nervous system with the visceral feeling of already possessing it, you are generating an immense energetic output.
Now, here is where it gets incredibly tricky, though. Because if emotion is the engine, that engine functions flawlessly in both directions.
It really does.
The mechanism doesn't have a moral compass. If your emotionally charged thoughts are saturated with panic, with a fear of lack, with an intense dread of failure, you are essentially pouring high-octane rocket fuel on the exact reality you are desperately trying to escape.
That is a brilliant observation, and it is entirely accurate. The universe does not judge the emotion. It merely acts upon its intensity and magnitude.
So the body doesn't know the difference.
No, your nervous system cannot differentiate between a physical threat standing right in front of you and an imagined threat you are vividly playing out in your mind.
That's terrifying, actually.
It can be. If you spend your time intensely visualizing a disastrous outcome, flooding your body with cortisol and adrenaline,
Yeah.
you are actively aligning your energetic blueprint with disaster. Which brings us to the third crucial component, perception.
Perception. How we literally see the world around us.
More specifically, the fundamental angle from which you view existence. It asks the question, from what vantage point are you observing the world? Are you looking at your desired reality as something distant, something separate from you? Or are you looking from it?
Wait, that is a subtle but profound distinction. Looking at versus looking from. Explain the mechanics of that.
It changes everything about your biological and energetic state. If you are looking at a life of absolute security, you are inherently confirming your current separation from it.
Because you're saying it's over there.
Right. You are declaring through your perception, I am standing over here in lack, and that beautiful reality is way over there in the distance. Your brain registers the gap.
So it highlights the distance.
Exactly. But if your perception shifts, and you begin to view the world from the vantage point of already having attained that reality, your perception aligns with the blueprint. You begin to interpret incoming data differently.
Your brain's filtering system starts highlighting opportunities rather than obstacles simply because you have changed the instructions you were giving it.
You've got it.
Let me explore that further. Because I can attempt to look from a place of success, right? But if I wake up genuinely, quietly anticipating that a disaster is waiting just around the corner, if I have a lingering dread that my good fortune cannot possibly last, doesn't that completely unravel the perception I am trying to build?
You have just perfectly identified the fourth component of frequency expectations.
Yeah.
Your expectations are essentially what you casually, almost boringly, accept as normal.
Normal.
The physical plane inevitably, flawlessly delivers whatever you find entirely ordinary. Expectations act as a psychological thermostat.
A thermostat, meaning it regulates the climate of your life.
Exactly. Think about a physical thermostat. If you set a room's thermostat to a cold temperature, but then you bring in a space heater, the room will temporarily warm up.
Sure.
But the moment the heater is turned off, the thermostat will kick the air conditioning back on to return the room to its baseline cold state. Humans operate the exact same way.
Well, that makes so much sense.
If your desired reality is robust physical vitality, but your deeply held baseline expectation is that your body will inevitably betray you when placed under stress, reality will honor your expectation.
So I might experience a brief period of health, the space heater?
Right, but your internal thermostat will eventually pull you back to your expected baseline of illness or fatigue. Your expectation sets the absolute ceiling of what reality is permitted to deliver to you.
It is like gravity. You don't have to think about gravity constantly for it to function. You don't wake up and consciously declare, I believe gravity will keep my feet on the ground today. You just expect that when you drop a glass, it will hit the floor.
Exactly.
So what we are saying is that we need to cultivate that exact same level of mundane, unexciting certainty about our desired realities. Success shouldn't feel like a miraculous shock. It should feel like gravity.
That is a phenomenal way to articulate it. Mundane certainty. And the only way to build that mundane certainty is by mastering the fifth element, focus. Focus is the primary real estate of your mind. Where does the lion's share of your mental energy reside on a daily basis? Are you intensely focused on the glaring absence of your desire?
Are you staring deeply into the obstacles, endlessly analyzing every single angle of why it hasn't happened yet?
Right. There is an immutable rule of energy. It flows entirely where attention goes. If your focus is locked like a laser on the resistance, you are actively feeding the resistance. You are giving it life.
But, you know, the physical world is incredibly persuasive, and it is aggressively good at providing us with things to focus on.
It really is.
We live in an environment that constantly throws friction in our path delays, rejections, unexpected bills, sudden conflicts. How we interface with that external friction seems like it would dictate our internal state completely.
It does, which introduces the sixth component, reactions versus responses. This is the tangible measurement of how you interface with the friction of the physical plane.
Okay, break that down.
A reaction is an unconscious, deeply programmed reflex. It is driven entirely by the older, more primitive parts of the brain. You encounter an obstacle, and you immediately react from your current state of lacking, with sudden anger, paralyzing fear, or heavy despair.
You let the external event dictate your internal climate.
Precisely. You hand over the remote control of your nervous system to the outside world. A response, however, is a deliberate, conscious choice.
A conscious choice.
Yes, it requires creating a fraction of a second of space between the stimulus and your behavior.
Hmm.
You observe the obstacle, you feel the initial biological pull to panic, but you pause.
You don't just act on the panic.
No, you anchor yourself back into the internal state of your desired reality, and you respond to the friction as the version of yourself who has already achieved the goal. You ask yourself, how would the person who already possesses absolute security handle this minor delay?
So a reaction is essentially a confession of who you currently believe you are, someone vulnerable and lacking.
Yes,
While a response is a firm declaration of who you have chosen to be.
that is elegantly put. A confession versus a declaration. And that declaration is fueled by the final and perhaps most vital component of the entire ecosystem: conviction.
Convictions.
Convictions represent absolute, unshakable trust in your own internal decrees. It is the ultimate manifestation of self-trust.
So I declare something.
If you declare an internal truth to the universe, but you secretly harbor profound, agonizing doubt in your own authority to make that declaration, the universe reads the doubt, not the words.
The universe reads the doubt. That is heavy.
The universe responds to your deepest conviction. You must learn to operate with a conviction so dense, so heavy, that it rivals the physical laws of nature.
Okay, I have to stop you here. Because when you lay it all out like that, when you list beliefs, emotionally charged thoughts, perception, expectations, focus, reactions, and convictions, it sounds like a genuinely superhuman task.
It can definitely feel that way.
I am placing myself in the shoes of someone listening to this. Someone who is navigating the chaotic, demanding nature of modern life. How can any normal person realistically align all these deeply complex internal components when the external world is constantly screaming for their attention?
It takes practice, yes.
Let me offer an analogy to visualize this challenge.
Mm.
Imagine you are trying to broadcast a crystal clear, beautifully complex symphony over a radio transmitter.
Okay, I picture it.
You have all the string instruments tuned perfectly. The woodwinds are completely in sync. The brass section is immaculate. Let's say that represents your focus, your perception, and your emotionally charged thoughts. You are doing the daily work.
Beautiful.
But there is one rogue instrument in the orchestra pit. Let's say it is your foundational belief buried deep in your subconscious, and that one rogue instrument insists on playing harsh, discordant heavy metal at maximum volume.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
If my conscious focus is entirely on abundance, but my underlying adopted belief is that opportunities are just a solitary spark in a dark, unforgiving void, doesn't that single dissonant chord completely shatter the entire symphony?
It does. It shatters the broadcast entirely. And this internal dissonance, this clash between conscious desire and subconscious programming, is exactly why the overwhelming majority of realities fail to materialize, despite monumental physical effort.
So that's the trap.
This is the great frustrating trap of reality creation. People will diligently align one or two components. They will rigorously monitor their focus, perhaps through meditation, or they will try to generate positive emotion through affirmations.
But they completely ignore the heavy metal playing loudly in the background.
Right. The heavy metal of their foundational beliefs or their baseline expectations just drowns out the rest.
So partial alignment is basically no alignment at all. If I am doing 5 of the 7 things right, I don't get a passing grade.
Total, crystal clear alignment across all components is an absolute non-negotiable law.
Wow, non-negotiable.
The energetic blueprint of your desired reality does not have a margin for error, where it accepts a transmission that is mostly abundance mixed with a heavy undercurrent of deep-seated terror. The energy signature must match completely.
And if it doesn't?
If it does not, if you broadcast a fractured signal, you will simply materialize a reality that perfectly reflects that chaotic, mixed transmission. You'll experience a reality of near misses, sudden losses, moments of hope followed immediately by heavy friction.
So what does this all mean for us functionally? Understanding the sheer anatomy of this inner symphony and the absolute necessity of its harmony naturally forces us to confront the rigid, immutable laws that govern how this internal music actually translates into external, tangible matter.
Exactly. We must transition from the anatomy of consciousness to the unyielding physics of reality itself. We must discuss the immutable law of mental cause and physical effect.
I want to dig deeply into this because we use the words cause and effect constantly in our daily lives, but almost exclusively in a purely physical context.
Yes, we do.
Like, I accidentally push a glass off the edge of a table. That is the cause. The glass shatters into pieces on the floor. That is the effect. Physical action, physical reaction. But the framework we are exploring here proposes a paradigm-shifting truth that completely upends that understanding.
It does upend it entirely. The great persistent illusion of human existence is believing that cause and effect operate on the exact same dimensional plane.
We believe physical causes create physical effects.
We do, but they do not. The profound truth we must integrate is this. Cause only exists on the mental plane, while effect only exists on the physical plane.
That is massive. Let's really isolate that statement so it lands. Cause is entirely fundamentally mental. Effect is entirely exclusively physical.
Yes. And the profound error of humanity, the absolute root of nearly all our suffering, our burnout, and our exhaustion, is desiring an effect without first possessing the corresponding cause internally.
So wanting the physical thing without the mental foundation.
Precisely. We deeply desire the effect of wealth, the effect of profound love, the effect of towering success. We look around our physical environment, we perceive the absence of these effects, and we try to manipulate the physical world to force them into existence.
We try to rearrange the pieces of our lives with sheer willpower.
Right. To use your earlier example, it is like we're on our hands and knees trying to glue the shattered glass back together on the floor, hoping that if we fix it perfectly, it will somehow magically jump back up onto the table and undo the cause.
Oh man, that is so true. It is the utter futility of wishing the external world would change so that the internal self can finally experience relief.
Exactly.
We tell ourselves these convincing lies, like, once I secure those vast resources, then the knot of anxiety in my stomach will vanish and I will feel secure. Or, once I find the perfect union with another person, then I will finally feel worthy of love.
It is entirely backward. It defies the physics of reality. It is the absolute equivalent of a farmer standing in a barren, empty field, angrily demanding the soil to suddenly sprout a bountiful harvest without the farmer ever having possessed, let alone planted, a single seed.
I love that imagery, and I want to expand on it to make this intensely concrete. Let's look closely at the concept of the root and the fruit.
Okay, let's explore that.
The physical reality you are experiencing right now today, your bank account balance, the quality of your relationships, your career trajectory, your physical vitality, all of that is the fruit. It is the visible, tangible, ultimate result.
That effect.
The effect, exactly. But your internal state, that complex, layered ecosystem of frequency, beliefs, and expectations we just dissected, is the hidden root system buried deep beneath the soil.
The cause.
The cause. And if your internal root system is fundamentally steeped in the essence of scarcity, or if it is tangled in toxicity and defensive mechanisms you developed in the distant past, you cannot logically demand the branches to suddenly bear the fruit of massive abundance or absolute harmony.
An apple seed simply cannot produce an oak tree.
Exactly. No matter how much you water it or yell at it, you must fundamentally be the reality internally before the physical plane has the capacity to mirror it back to you.
And yet the psychological resistance we have to accepting this truth is staggering. We are so fiercely, intimately bound by the illusion of the physical senses.
Our biology is wired to trust what it can see and touch.
Yes. We can physically touch the empty wallet. We can hear the harsh words of rejection. We can visually see the closed doors. Because the physical senses are so overwhelmingly loud and so persuasive to our nervous system, we genuinely, deeply believe the physical world is the origin point of our reality.
Right. So we react to the physical.
So we spend endless tides of our lives attempting to manipulate the effect, completely ignoring the mental cause. We change jobs, we move across the country to new cities, we switch partners, we alter our diets, endlessly hoping that a new physical arrangement will finally, permanently produce the desired internal feeling.
But because we pack up our internal root system and take it with us wherever we go, we just end up growing the exact same bitter fruit in a different geographical field.
The faces change, the locations change, but the patterns repeat flawlessly.
Exactly. You cannot outrun your own frequency. Geography does not change an energetic blueprint. To possess an entirely new reality, you must operate from the absolute unwavering conviction that you already embody it.
You must observe the physical world not for confirmation of your desired reality, but from the perspective of already having attained it.
You stop checking the mirror to see if you have smiled yet. You smile, knowing the mirror has no choice but to reflect it.
And that is the perfect way to phrase it.
Okay, hold on. I need to push back here, and I need to do it strongly, because this is exactly the point in these types of philosophical frameworks where things can become incredibly dangerous or wildly misinterpreted.
I welcome the pushback. What's on your mind?
I am putting myself in the shoes of a listener who is dealing with something genuinely traumatic. someone who has just received a devastating health diagnosis, or someone who has been subjected to immense cruelty or lost their livelihood unexpectedly.
Absolutely valid.
If we are standing here saying that the absolute key is altering the mental cause, if I have to maintain this perfect, pristine internal alignment to grow the right fruit, doesn't that create a massive, overwhelming pressure to be perfectly happy and positive all the time?
A pressure to be flawless.
Yes. And more importantly, doesn't it imply a sophisticated form of victim blaming? Are we telling people that the tragedies they face are their fault because their frequency was wrong? We are setting up what feels like an impossible, punishing standard of mental purity.
I am profoundly glad you brought that up because it is, without question, the most dangerous trap in this entire journey, and we must fiercely dismantle this pervasive myth right now.
Okay, please do.
First, regarding the concept of blame, we must firmly separate the profound concept of personal sovereignty from the toxic concept of moral blame. As we discussed, the overwhelming majority of your foundational beliefs were implanted in you during the dawn of your cycle, long before you had a choice.
You inherited them.
You inherited a frequency from your environment, from generational trauma, from systemic structures. You are not morally to blame for the subconscious programming you inherited, nor are you to blame for the physical effects that chaotic inherited momentum produces.
So it's not about pointing a finger and saying, you thought a bad thought, therefore you deserve this tragedy.
Absolutely not. The universe does not deal in punishment or reward. It deals purely in reflection and momentum.
Okay.
The empowered perspective is not about looking backward to assign blame for the effect. It is about looking strictly forward and taking absolute sovereign control of the mental cause from this exact moment onward.
So focusing on what we do next.
Exactly. Now, to address your point about the pressure of maintaining perfect positivity, there is a massive, incredibly toxic societal illusion regarding what a correct mental state actually looks like.
The toxic positivity trap.
Yes. So many people chase an impossible, harmful ideal of spiritual purity. They wrongly believe that maintaining a high frequency requires a state of endless, unbroken euphoria.
Which is impossible.
Completely. They adopt extreme, rigid physical rituals, perhaps severe dietary restrictions, or isolating themselves in a flawless, monk-like existence, or refusing to ever utter a negative word, believing these physical actions somehow earn them spiritual merit.
It feels like they are trying to bribe the universe, like they are trying to prove how good and pure they are, so reality will finally reward them.
Yes. These rituals, while sometimes appearing serene on the surface, are almost always masking a desperate, deeply anxious attempt to earn reality's favor. But the universe does not reward first spiritual purity.
It doesn't care about the performance.
The universe does not care how perfectly you perform a morning routine or how intensely you police your vocabulary. The universe simply reflects the genuine intensity and magnitude of your actual internal state.
Your actual state, not the mask.
Right. And attempting to maintain an artificial sky-high level of relentless happiness actually defies the natural rhythmic biological pulse of human existence.
Because it's fundamentally inauthentic. It's a performance art, not a state of being. And the nervous system knows it's a lie.
It is a forced performance. And the body always keeps the score. Think of a heavy pendulum. If you take a pendulum and you forcefully drag it to extreme, unnatural heights of artificial positivity, if you repress your natural grief or ignore your valid anger to force a smile, what happens?
It has to swing back.
Universal physical laws dictate that a pendulum swung forcefully to extreme heights must eventually violently crash downward in the opposite direction. Forcing toxic positivity, denying your actual complex emotional landscape in an attempt to be perfectly aligned, inevitably leads to a devastating psychological plummet. You crash into profound guilt, paralyzing shame, and intense frustration because you inevitably couldn't maintain the impossible inhuman standard.
And then, ironically, that intense spiraling frustration becomes your dominant frequency, which the universe then dutifully materializes.
Exactly. You end up creating the exact chaos you were so desperately trying to avoid by being perfect.
Oh, wow. So the frantic attempt to be perfectly high vibe actually backfires completely. Let me introduce an analogy here to ground this concept of what a proper frequency actually is. Let's call it the smudged lens.
The smudged lens, I like it.
If having the right frequency isn't about being perfectly delusionally happy all the time, isn't it simply about clarity? Imagine you're walking through the world wearing a pair of glasses, but the lenses are thick with mud, smudges, and dirt. Because your vision is obscured, you can't see the environment clearly. You blindly walk right into a brick wall, you trip over a bench, you experience all this unnecessary blunt force physical pain. And because you can't see clearly, you blame the wall for being there. You blame the world for attacking you.
Yes, that is a perfect representation of what living in a deeply distorted, unexamined frequency feels like. You are constantly colliding with reality.
Right. So operating at the right frequency isn't about taking off those dirty glasses and replacing them with brightly colored, rose-tinted lenses that magically make the brick wall look like a soft marshmallow.
You aren't deluding yourself.
Exactly. Operating at the right frequency is simply taking out a cloth and meticulously cleaning the lens. It is operating with a pristine level of awareness where you see reality's true objective nature without the heavy distortion of your own internal chaos, your past traumas, or your adopted fears.
That is a brilliant clarification. The goal is pristine awareness, not forced joy. Building on that, we look back through the passage of eras at the ancient sages of boundless awareness, or the profound modern observers of human resilience. The individuals who seemingly mastered the physical plane,
Yeah,
they did not experience reality without intense challenge.
they still had problems.
Of course, they were not walking around in a permanent state of manic joy, completely detached from the physical world's friction. They experienced loss, they experienced physical pain, they experienced resistance. The vital difference was that they simply saw reality with a completely clear lens.
They saw the wall, recognized it as a wall, and calmly made the decision to walk around it, rather than crashing blindly into it and then spending 3 days crying about how unfair the universe is for putting a wall in their path.
Precisely. You do not need a universally high or euphoric frequency to become the architect of your reality. You only need the right frequency.
The right frequency.
And the right frequency is the exact, neutralized, normalized state of awareness that aligns with your specific desired reality. Think about it logically. Are you deliriously, ecstatically happy every single second of your current life?
Definitely not. Not even close.
No one is. So why do we operate under the assumption that in our desired reality, once we finally have the vast wealth or the perfect union or the immense success, we will suddenly transform into permanently ecstatic beings?
Right, that expectation is completely flawed.
You won't. You will still have a normal range of human emotions. You will still get annoyed by traffic. You will still feel tired. The only difference is that your baseline, your normalized resting state, will be one of inherent abundance rather than inherent scarcity.
The baseline shifts.
The true mastery is making the desired reality feel entirely normal, entirely ordinary today. It shouldn't feel like a rush of adrenaline. It should feel like a quiet exhale.
Okay, this is an immense relief. Stripping away the suffocating pressure of forced perfection completely changes the game. It makes the work accessible. But it also leaves us with the raw, unavoidable reality of human existence. Inevitably, no matter how clear our lenses, the external world is sometimes going to throw a handful of dirt right onto our pristine glasses.
It is going to happen.
We are going to get genuinely bad news. We are going to face harsh, stinging rejection. The mastery, then, doesn't lie in preventing the dirt from ever flying. The mastery lies entirely in what happens in the specific seconds, minutes, and hours after the dirt hits the lens.
Yes. We are now entering the realm of the alchemy of real-time recalibration. And I want to establish a profoundly comforting truth right now.
Yeah.
One that should ease the anxiety of anyone engaged in this work. Being thrown off your frequency is not the problem.
Let's repeat that for everyone listening, because it is the exact opposite of what we are usually taught. Being thrown off is not the problem.
It is not the problem at all. The physical world's natural rhythmic design will occasionally disrupt your equilibrium. It is built to provide contrast. Staying thrown off, however, is the fatal error.
Because of the physics of momentum?
Because of momentum, exactly. When you fall out of alignment, when a piece of genuinely bad news hits you and your nervous system naturally drops in to fear or despair, your old state of consciousness, that old root system you were actively trying to outgrow, acts like a parasite.
It preys on you when you're down.
It seizes the opportunity of your vulnerability. It attempts to convince you that all your progress is fundamentally, permanently lost. It points its metaphorical finger at a momentary rejection or a sudden, unexpected loss, and it whispers in your ear that all your internal work was pointless.
It tells you the physical world is still the master and you are just a victim. It's like wearing an old, heavy, damp coat. You take it off, you are feeling light, you are moving forward, you are making progress, but then a sudden freezing storm hits. In your panic, you reach for what is familiar and you wrap that heavy, freezing, damp coat back around your shoulders.
That's a very vivid way to describe it.
And here is the visceral, dangerous part. The longer you let that distorted, fearful frequency sit on your shoulders, the more that damp garment literally fuses to your skin. You wear it for a day, and it's uncomfortable. You wear it for a week, and it starts to feel like a part of your own body.
Becomes familiar again.
Until eventually trying to peel it off feels agonizingly painful, and you just surrender, accepting the heavy, cold weight as your permanent reality once again.
The physics of momentum dictate that allowing yourself to wallow in a misaligned state allows that negative frequency to rapidly solidify into dense physical matter. You give it density. You give it weight. You fuel the cause.
Okay, so this demands a highly practical, granular question. We fundamentally understand the danger of the damp coat. We know we shouldn't wear it. But I want you to walk us through the actual mechanics.
Sure.
When I am standing there, staring directly at a catastrophic failure in my career, or feeling the raw, stinging physiological burn of a massive personal rejection, how do I simply recalibrate without it feeling like sheer delusional madness? How do I physically and mentally pivot when the tangible evidence of failure is screaming in my face and my heart is racing? Give us the toolkit.
You do it by understanding the actual psychological and physiological mechanics of real-time reality rewriting. First, you must realize that the overwhelming majority of the negative emotion you are feeling is not actually born from the event itself.
Wait, really? The event isn't causing the pain?
No. The intense suffering is born from your mind violently projecting that specific event into a permanent future of lack. The pain is the narrative you are attaching to the event.
That is profound. So the pain isn't the rejection itself. The pain is the mind rapidly calculating and saying, this rejection means I am inadequate, and therefore I will be alone and destitute forever.
Exactly. The mind creates a catastrophic future simulation, and the body reacts as if that simulation is happening right now. So recalibration is absolutely not about suppressing the initial emotional sting.
Because suppression doesn't work.
Suppression is just shoving the damp coat into a dark closet where it quietly grows mold and rots the house. You acknowledge the emotional sting. You allow the physical sensation to wash through your nervous system. You take a deep, deliberate breath to signal to your primitive brain that you are not in immediate physical danger. You ground yourself. But then, within moments, you execute an immediate conscious pivot of attention. You deliberately disrupt the catastrophic narrative. You ask yourself a simple, radically disruptive question. What reality do I actually desire right now?
You force the mind to stop staring at the broken glass on the floor, and you force it to look back at the blueprint.
You do. You command your focus, and then you mentally, forcefully relocate your awareness to the perspective of already possessing that desired reality. You do not hope for it. You do not beg the universe to fix the situation.
You just assume the state.
You assume the absolute, calm conviction that the physical event you just witnessed is merely a temporary echo of an old frequency fading out, a remnant of the past, not the final word on your destination.
Let me ground this in a highly specific, concrete example of what this level of mental sovereignty actually looks like in practice, because I think this is where the theory becomes life-changing.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine an entrepreneur who has poured their entire life force into a singular project. They secure a meeting with a vital investor, a meeting that represents the culmination of all their effort. They pitch their vision, and the investor not only declines, but delivers a harsh systemic critique of the entire endeavor.
A crushing blow.
The entrepreneur walks out of that room possessing only a solitary spark of hope, a mere fragment of the resources they require. In that immediate moment, it is an event that seemingly indicates total, humiliating failure. The physical world is loudly screaming scarcity.
The physical evidence is completely against them.
Right. The rational physical mind is saying, cancel everything except defeat. You have failed completely.
The old frequency, the old conditioning is whispering that it is completely over. The damp coat is heavy.
Exactly. The physiological response is panic, but this specific individual refuses to accept the physical illusion of finality. They do not allow the damp coat to settle on their shoulders. They sit in their car. They acknowledge the physical reality of the rejection. They feel the sting of embarrassment.
They feel it, but they don't drown in it.
But they actively disrupt the physiological panic. They take a breath, and they internally refuse to break their alignment with the vast constellation of abundance they desire. Instead of spiraling into victimhood, they use the alchemy of recalibration.
They reframe.
They reframe the event instantly. They decide with absolute conviction that this rejection is not a closed door, but a necessary filter, removing a misaligned partner to make room for the correct one. They hold the frequency of inevitable success.
And then action follows.
Right. They go back to their desk, not in despair, but energized to pivot their pitch based on the feedback. And because they maintained the cause, the external effect eventually bends.
They have to bend.
The next interaction they have, born from that maintained frequency, brings a vast constellation of resources that dwarfs the original opportunity. And it happens precisely because progress is only lost if your subconscious mind agrees to the illusion of defeat.
That is true alchemy. That is the literal rewriting of the code of the physical world in real time.
Real-time rewriting.
If that entrepreneur had looked at their solitary spark and agreed with the physical world, if they had dropped their frequency into shame, canceled their next meetings, and wallowed in despair, the universe would have instantly mirrored that agreement.
The reality of scarcity and failure would have locked into place like concrete.
But because they held the internal cause steady, the external effect had no choice but to warp, bend, and eventually match it. The physical world, no matter how resistant it appears, must eventually surrender to the dominant internal frequency.
It is an incredible realization of power. It shifts you from being a passive victim of circumstance to an active participant in creation, which really brings us to the ultimate realization of what we are truly capable of as conscious beings.
Yes. When you zoom out from the daily friction and observe the sheer magnitude of this knowledge, it completely shatters the fragile, limited, historically conditioned view we hold of ourselves.
We are so much more.
We are not fragile, insignificant life forms helplessly reacting to a hostile, random physical environment.
We are not just ping pong balls being violently bounced around by the whims of chance and chaotic circumstance.
We are the active, sovereign architects of existence itself. The profound ability to control the lens of your awareness, to hold the exact, precise internal reality firmly and unshakably, while the external, physical world actively attempts to distort it with storms and friction. That is the absolute pinnacle of human potential.
The true mastery of the physical experience.
It is.
And it all comes full circle, right back to that seemingly unmovable mountain we talked about at the very beginning of our exploration today. The mountain isn't actively resisting you to punish you.
It's just a reflection.
The mountain isn't a sentient enemy. The mountain is simply waiting for you to realize that you are the one projecting it into existence. Which leaves us with a deeply personal, perhaps profoundly uncomfortable, but ultimately liberating challenge for you to ponder as you step back into your daily life.
A vital question to carry with you.
You have spent a lifetime, perhaps, searching for the missing secret. You've sought the final technique, the right philosophy, the perfect morning routine, the external key that will finally unlock the reality you crave. You have looked everywhere outside of yourself for the magical lever that moves the world.
We all have.
But what if you realize, right now, in the quietest, deepest depths of your awareness, that you are the only missing secret in the entirety of the universe? If the dense physical world is truly nothing more than a giant, flawless mirror waiting for you to cast a reflection, what reflection will you choose to hold steady, starting at this exact moment? The gears of reality aren't jammed. They never were. They are simply waiting for the master clockmaker to finally, consciously take the dial.